The Hey Eddie podcast is brought to you by. Has your statue fallen over in the middle of the night and lost its head and hands? Then you need Dagon's Super Glue, specifically formulated by the priests of Ashdod after a very, very bad week. Just a dab on the neck, a squeeze on the wrist, and your idol will be back up in one piece. Well, until tomorrow morning, then you'll probably need more glue. Dagon Super Glue comes in a giant economy tub because, let's be honest, you're going to go through a lot of this. Warning, does not work against the God of Israel, does not prevent tumors, rats, or plague, does not stop cows from walking in a straight line. Dagon Super Glue, because somebody keeps knocking your God over, and it's definitely not a coincidence. This is the Hey Eddie podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. The Hey Eddie podcast is dedicated to helping kids like my cool cousin Eddie learn about the Bible and learn important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. The Bible is indeed God's gift to kids, a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. On today's episode of the Hey Eddie podcast, we're going to be studying 1 Samuel chapters 5 and 6 in a lesson titled, The Ark Fights Back. This lesson will teach us that God doesn't need anyone to rescue or defend him. He fights his own battles and always wins. Our key memory verse is 1 Samuel chapter 6, verse 20. Who can stand in the presence of the Lord, this holy God? Hey Eddie, have you ever heard of a trophy? You know, like when your team wins a championship. You get a big shiny trophy to show everyone that you're the winner and the other team lost. Well, in today's story, the Philistines thought they had captured the ultimate trophy. They had taken the Ark of God, the golden box that represented God's presence with Israel. They thought it meant their god Dagon had defeated Israel's God. But they were so wrong. Because the Ark wasn't just some trophy, and the God of Israel wasn't defeated at all. In fact, he was about to show the Philistines and all of Israel that no one messes with him. This story is wild. Ready? Let's go. The Philistines were pumped. They had beaten Israel in battle. They had captured the Ark of God, and now they carried it to their most important city, Ashdod, and put it in the temple of their god Dagon. Dagon was the main god of the Philistines. They believed he had given them victory over Israel. So they set up the ark right next to the big statue of Dagon, like putting a loser's trophy at the feet of the winner. Look, they probably said, Israel's God bows before our God now. But the next morning, when they came into the temple, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground, right in front of the ark of the Lord. Their God was flat on the floor, face down, like he was bowing to the God of Israel. The Philistines were confused. They picked Dagon up and put him back in his place. Weird, they probably said. Must have been an accident. But the next morning, they came in and Dagon was face down again, except this time his head and his hands had broken off and were lying on the floor. Think about what that means. Their powerful God had been executed. His head cut off, his hands cut off. Dagon looked like a defeated soldier, not a victorious God. And who knocked him down? Who cut off his head and hands? Nobody. God did it all by himself, in Dagon's own temple. The Philistines thought they had captured a trophy. Instead, they brought a conqueror into their house. But God wasn't done. After humiliating Dagon, God turned his attention to the people of Ashdod. The Bible says the Lord's hand was heavy upon the people of Ashdod. God struck them with tumors, painful, horrible sores that spread through the whole city. People got sick, people died, and there were rats everywhere, ruining the land. The people of Ashdod panicked. They said, "The ark of the God of Israel must not stay here with us. His hand is too heavy on us and on Dagon our God." So they called a meeting with the rulers of all 5 Philistine cities. What do we do with this thing? Someone had a bright idea. Send it to Gath. So they shipped the ark to Gath. Guess what happened? The same thing. Tumors, panic, death. Young and old, everyone was getting sick. The people of Gath said, "Get it out of here." So they sent it to Ekron. But when the ark arrived at Ekron, the people saw it coming and started screaming, "They've brought the ark here to kill us." And they were right. The plague hit Ekron too. People were dying. The whole city was crying out in agony. For 7 months, the ark traveled through Philistine territory, and everywhere it went, disaster followed. The Philistines had learned something important. Israel's God was not defeated. He was very much alive, and he was very, very powerful. The Philistines had enough. They called their priests and fortune tellers and asked, "What do we do with the ark of the Lord? How do we send it back?" The priests said, "Don't send it back empty. You need to send a guilt offering with it. Make 5 gold tumors and 5 gold rats, one for each of your 5 cities. Pay honor to Israel's God. Maybe then he'll stop attacking you." Then they gave a warning. Don't harden your hearts like the Egyptians and Pharaoh did. The Philistines knew the stories. They knew what happened when Pharaoh refused to let God's people go. The plagues, the death, the destruction. They did not want to end up like Pharaoh. But here's the thing. They weren't totally sure it was really God doing all this. Maybe it was just bad luck. Maybe it was a coincidence. So the priests came up with a test. Here's what they did. They got a brand new cart. They hitched it to 2 mother cows that had never pulled a cart before. And here's the tricky part. They took the cows' baby calves away and pinned them up at home. Then they put the ark on the cart along with a box containing the golden tumors and golden rats. The priest said, "Now watch carefully. If the cows pull the cart straight toward Israel, toward a town called Beth Shemesh, then we'll know it was the Lord who brought this disaster on us. But if the cows turn around and go back to their calves, then we'll know it was just chance." Think about it, Eddie. What would any normal mother cow do? She would go back to her babies. Cows don't just abandon their calves and walk away. That's not natural. So if these cows walked away from their babies and headed straight to Israel, that would be a miracle. That would prove God was in control. They let the cows go, and the cows went straight up the road toward Beth Shemesh. They didn't turn right, they didn't turn left, they didn't go back to their calves. They mooed the whole way, probably crying for their babies, but they kept walking straight toward Israel. The Philistine rulers followed behind, watching the whole thing. God had signed his name across the situation. There was no doubt now this was his doing. The people of Beth Shemesh were out harvesting wheat when they looked up and saw the ark coming toward them on a cart pulled by 2 cows. They were thrilled. The ark was back. God had returned to Israel. The cart stopped in a field beside a big rock. The people chopped up the cart for firewood and sacrificed the cows as an offering to God. They celebrated and worshiped. The Philistine rulers watched all this, then turned around and went back home to Ekron. Their nightmare was finally over. But Israel's wasn't. Something went wrong. Some of the men of Beth Shemesh did something they weren't supposed to do. They looked into the ark, or they treated it carelessly. The Bible doesn't give us all the details, but they didn't treat God's holy presence with the respect it deserved. And God struck down 70 men. The people were devastated. They cried out, "Who can stand in the presence of the Lord, this holy God?" They were so scared that they didn't even want the ark in their town anymore. They sent messengers to a nearby town called Kiriath-Jearim and said, "The Philistines have returned the ark. Come get it. Take it to your place." So the men of Kiriath-Jearim came and took the ark. They brought it to the house of a man named Abinadab on a hill, and they set apart his son Eleazar to guard it. And there the ark stayed for the next 20 years. So what does this mean for you? First, God doesn't need anyone to defend him. The Philistines thought they had conquered Israel's God, but God knocked down their God, sent plagues on their people, and brought himself back to Israel all by himself. He didn't need an army. He didn't need Israel to rescue him. Our God is not weak. Second, you can't capture or control God. Israel tried to use the ark like a lucky charm. The Philistines tried to keep it like a trophy. Neither worked. God is not an object you can manipulate. He's the living God who does what he wants. Third, God is holy, and that's serious. The men of Beth Shemesh learned that God's presence isn't something that you treat casually. He's not your buddy who doesn't care how you act. He's the holy God of the universe. We can come close to him, but with reverence and respect. Fourth, even pagans can learn about God. The Philistine priests figured out they shouldn't harden their hearts like Pharaoh. They paid honor to God. Sometimes people who don't know God understand his power better than people who should know him. Fifth, God always wins. The Philistines thought they had won the war, but God won the real battle in Dagon's own temple with nobody watching. No matter how bad things look, God is never defeated. He always has the last word. So remember, the ark that looked like a captured trophy was really a conquering king. And the God of Israel, he always fights back. This has been the Hey Eddie Podcast. I'm your host, Cousin Michael. Remember that the Hey Eddie Podcast is dedicated to studying the Bible and learning important lessons about God, about Jesus, and about life. Today we discussed 1 Samuel chapters 5 and 6. Tune in soon for another episode of the Hey Eddie Podcast, where we'll study 1 Samuel chapter 7. Love you, Eddie.